For 6 nights, someone slipped warning notes under my apartment door while I slept. I ignored every one of them. The 7th note said only 4 words. "Daniel, it's too late. I'm going to tell you something that took me 2 years to say out loud. Not because I couldn't find the words, but because saying it out loud makes it real, makes it something that actually happened to a real person, in a real apartment building, on a real street, that you could find on Google Maps right now if you wanted to. You could walk past it. You probably wouldn't notice anything wrong. That's what scares me most. My name is Daniel, and for 7 nights in February of 2019, someone slid a note under my door while I slept. The first 6 were warnings. I didn't know that then. I moved into the Hargrove Arms in January. That's what they called it, the Hargrove Arms, though the sign above the entrance had been missing the H for as long as anyone could remember. So it just said Hargrove Arms in faded bronze lettering above the door. It was a 6-story building on the east side of the city. Old. The kind of old where the elevator buttons were actual physical dials you had to twist, not press. The kind of old where the hallways smelled like carpet that had absorbed 40 years of other people's cooking, their arguments, their ordinary lives soaked into the fiber. I was 26, newly single, newly transferred to a job I wasn't sure I wanted, in a city I didn't know yet. The apartment was the cheapest thing I could find that didn't have visible mold in the listing photos. Rent was $740 a month for a 1-bedroom on the 4th floor, room 412. The neighbors were ghosts. That's the only way I can describe it. In 3 weeks of living there, I had heard people, footsteps above me, the muffled rhythm of someone else's alarm clock through the wall, but I had seen almost nobody. The hallways were always empty when I walked through them, doors always closed. The building felt populated, but invisible, like everyone had agreed, without discussion, to stay out of each other's sight. The one exception was the man across the hall, room 408. I didn't know his name. I still don't, but I saw him twice in that first month. Both times, he was standing in the hallway outside his door, in the same gray sweatshirt and dark pants, not doing anything, not walking anywhere, not checking his phone, just standing. The first time, I nodded at him, and he looked at me for a moment, really looked, like he was reading something, and then went back inside without a word. The second time, he was facing away from me. I walked past him toward the elevator. I could feel him turn to watch me go. I didn't look back. I told myself he was odd, but harmless. Old buildings attract odd people. I told myself a lot of things that month. The first note arrived on a Tuesday. I almost missed it. I was leaving for work, 7:40 in the morning, coffee in hand, keys already out, and I looked down at the threshold out of habit, the way you do when you're half awake and moving on instinct. A piece of paper, folded once, sitting just inside the door like it had drifted there. I picked it up, unfolded it. It was a single line, written in black ballpoint pen, in small, extremely neat capital letters. The locks on this floor were replaced in 2014. The deadbolts are weaker than they look. That was it. No name, no signature, no context. I stood there for probably 15 seconds, just reading it over and over, turning it in my hands like it might say something different on the back. It didn't. My first thought was that it was meant for someone else, slipped under the wrong door. My second thought was that it was some kind of odd building notice, a maintenance warning worded strangely. My third thought, the one I pushed down immediately and would spend the next 6 days wishing I had listened to, was that someone wanted me to know I wasn't as safe as I thought I was. I put it on the kitchen counter, went to work, told myself it was nothing. The second note arrived Thursday morning. Same position, same folded once presentation, same neat capital letters. The person in 406 has been playing music since midnight. They always stop at 4 a.m. Pay attention to when the building goes quiet. I read it 3 times. Then I walked across the hall and knocked on the door of room 406. No answer. I pressed my ear against the door, something I immediately felt strange doing. and heard nothing. No music, no movement. I knocked again. The door opened on the second knock, just slightly, like it hadn't been fully latched. 3 inches of darkness. The kind of darkness that feels thick somehow, like there's weight behind it. "Hello?" I said. Nothing. I pulled the door closed. Tried the handle. It caught. Locked. I went back to my apartment, sat on my couch, and put both notes side by side on the coffee table. Whoever was writing them was someone in the building. Someone who knew which apartment was mine. Someone who was awake, or at least moving, before I left for work each morning. I should have called the building manager that day. I know that now. I've replayed it so many times. The version of me sitting on that couch made a decision that I have never fully forgiven him for. He decided it was eccentric but not dangerous. He decided to wait and see. He put the notes in the kitchen drawer and went to bed. Notes 3 and 4 arrived on consecutive nights, Saturday and Sunday, which meant whoever was leaving them wasn't just catching me in the mornings. They were there at night, too. Note 3. There is a stairwell at the end of the 4th floor hallway that most residents don't use. It doesn't appear on the building map in the lobby. I have seen someone use it 3 times this week. They go up. They don't come back down. I walked the 4th floor hallway that morning for the first time deliberately, from end to end. And there it was. Past the last numbered door, past a janitor's closet I had never noticed. A door with no label, painted the same beige as the wall around it. Easy to miss. The kind of thing your eye slides past. It was unlocked. Behind it was a stairwell. Narrow. Concrete. The single bulb overhead had a pull chain that swayed when I pushed the door open, like someone had just let it go. I did not go up. I went back to my apartment and pushed a chair under my door handle that night. Note 4. The woman on the 6th floor in the northeast corner has not taken in her delivered packages in 11 days. Her lights have been on continuously. I think someone should check on her. I called the building manager that morning. Finally. His name was Petrov, a tired-sounding man who always seemed to be answering the phone from somewhere loud. I told him about the notes. All 4 of them. I read him the contents. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said the woman in the northeast 6th floor corner, room 614, had given notice 3 weeks ago. She'd moved out. The unit was empty. The packages, he said, must have been delivered to the wrong address. The lights, he said, were probably on a timer. I asked him about the unlabeled stairwell. He said it was a maintenance access stairwell, technically off limits to residents, but the lock was broken and had been on a repair list for months. He'd look into it. I asked him if anyone had complained about receiving strange notes. He said no. I was the only one. Note 5 came Monday. I was awake when it arrived, 3:47 a.m. I know because I had been lying in bed not sleeping, the chair still wedged under the door handle, watching the digital clock on my nightstand, and having the kind of 3 a.m. thoughts that feel profound and terrible, and which you can never quite remember in the morning. And I heard it, the faintest sound, not a knock, not footsteps, just the softest whisper of paper against hardwood. One continuous sound, brief, like an exhale. I was out of bed before I knew I was moving. I crossed the apartment in the dark, didn't turn on any lights. Something told me not to. I crouched at the door, and in the thin line of hallway light, I could see it. White paper, already still. I waited. I pressed my ear against the door. Silence on the other side. Then, and I need you to understand how certain I am about this, I heard breathing, slow, even, patient, on the other side of the door, inches from my face. I didn't move, didn't breathe, for what felt like 3 minutes, but was probably 30 seconds. We were separated by 2 inches of hollow core apartment door, and whoever was on the other side knew I was there. I knew they knew. That understanding passed between us through the wood like a current. Then footsteps, unhurried, moving away down the hall. I picked up the note, turned on the bathroom light, the only light I felt safe turning on, the one with no window. Note 5. I know you have been receiving these. I know you haven't left. I want you to know that I am not the danger. The danger is already inside the building. I have been watching it for 3 months. I thought I could handle it alone. I was wrong. Please, Don't use the maintenance stairwell after dark. I sat on the bathroom floor until 6 a.m. with my back against the tub and the note in my hands. The sentence I kept returning to was the one in the middle. I thought I could handle it alone. Note 6 arrived Wednesday, daytime this time. I found it when I came home from work at 6 p.m., which meant my watcher wasn't limited to nights. The building manager spoke to someone after your call. Not maintenance, not police. Someone came and went through the maintenance stairwell within 2 hours of your call. I saw them carry something down. It was large. It was wrapped. I could not see what it was. Do not call the building again. That night I did something I still don't know how to fully explain. Some combination of fear and the particular exhaustion that comes from being afraid for too long stripped away every rational instinct I had. I decided I needed to know. At 1 a.m. I took my phone, flashlight on, camera open, recording, and I went to the maintenance stairwell. The door opened the same as before. The stairwell went up. 5 flights, I figured, based on the building layout. I went up. 2nd floor landing, 3rd, 4th, my own floor, passing the door that opened onto the hallway, where my apartment was 30 feet away. I thought about stopping there. Thought about going back to bed. Kept climbing. 5th floor landing. The door here had a small rectangular window at eye level. I looked through it into the 5th floor hallway. Empty. Same carpet. Same yellow light. 6th floor. The 6th floor door was different. The window had been covered from the other side with something dark. Tape. Black electrical tape across the glass in an X. I stood there for a long moment. Then I pushed the door open. The 6th floor hallway smelled different. I noticed it immediately. Not rot. I want to be careful with how I describe this because people default to rot when they're telling horror stories. And this was not that. It was more like ozone, like the air before a lightning strike. Electric and sharp and wrong for an enclosed indoor space at 1 a.m. Room 614, the northeast corner. The unit the building manager had told me was empty. The door was open, not ajar. Open, fully, resting against the interior wall. I stood in the doorway and pointed my phone light inside. The apartment was not empty. I won't describe everything I saw because some of it I have spent 2 years trying to unsee, and I don't want to hand that to you. What I will tell you is this. There were photographs, dozens of them, printed and taped to the walls of the empty apartment in a grid. Photographs of hallways, of elevator interiors, of a parking garage, of a door I recognized as the door to room 412. My door, taken from the hallway, in the center of the grid. My door, photograph after photograph after photograph. I ran. I was back in my apartment with the deadbolt turned and the chair under the handle and my phone in my hand, trying to decide whether to call 911 before I registered it. The 7th note, already there, already inside, slipped under while I was upstairs. I picked it up off the floor with shaking hands, unfolded it. The handwriting was the same. Neat, capital letters, ballpoint pen, but this one was different from the first 6. This one had my name at the top. Daniel. They know someone has been leaving you notes. They found my apartment. I had to move quickly. I want you to know that what is in 614 is documentation. It is evidence. I have been building it for 3 months because no one believed me. There is a man who has been using this building. The manager knows. Leave tonight. Don't take the elevator. Don't use the main stairwell. Go out the maintenance stairwell. I will make sure it is clear. I am sorry I waited so long to speak to you directly. I am in room 408. Room 408. The man in the gray sweatshirt. The one who stood in the hallway watching me go. I stared at that note for 60 seconds, maybe 90. Then I put on my shoes, grabbed my keys, my wallet, my phone, just those 3 things, and I opened my door. The hallway was empty. I walked to room 408 and knocked twice. The door opened immediately. He had been waiting behind it. He was older than I'd thought, maybe 60. The gray sweatshirt, dark eyes that had been awake for too long. He looked at me, and something in his expression broke open with relief, the particular relief of someone who has been carrying something alone and has finally found another person willing to hold part of the weight. He spoke for 40 minutes. I'm going to tell you the short version. His name was Aldrich. He had lived in room 408 for 11 years. 14 months ago, he had noticed a pattern: residents leaving. Not unusually, buildings have turnover, but these departures had something in common. They were quiet, no goodbye to neighbors, belongings gone fast, and in some cases, 3 that he knew of, the residents had stopped responding to friends and family after leaving. He'd started documenting. The photographs in 614 were his. He'd been using the empty unit as a workspace because he was afraid they'd already been in his apartment. They. I asked him who. The building manager, he said, was one. There were others. What they were doing in the building, in the maintenance stairwell, what the wrapped object was that he'd seen carried down. He explained it, and I believed him, and I am not going to repeat that part here, not because I don't want to, but because it involves people who were never publicly identified and never faced consequences. And I have a lawyer who has told me clearly what I can and cannot say about an open investigation. What I can tell you is that we left the building together that night through the maintenance stairwell, that Aldrich had a sister in the suburbs with a spare room, that I never went back to room 412, that when police eventually entered the Hargrove Arms building 3 weeks later, for reasons I was not directly responsible for, they found enough in the basement to close the building indefinitely. It was demolished in 2021. I think about Aldrich sometimes, about the 40 minutes he spent talking in that doorway, the relief of finally being heard, about how long he waited, about all the notes he could have slipped under my door earlier, weeks earlier, maybe, and didn't, because he wasn't sure he could trust me, because in a building like that, in a situation like that, trust was the most dangerous thing you could extend to a stranger. The note with my name on it. He had known my name for weeks. He'd waited until he had no choice. That's the part I sit with, not the photographs, not the basement, not the wrapped thing in the dark. The patience, the calculation, the question of how long someone can watch something wrong unfold before they decide that doing something, anything, is worth the risk of being wrong. I don't have an answer to that. I'm not sure anyone does. If you have a story, something that happened in a building, in a neighborhood, on a road, somewhere that felt wrong in a way you couldn't explain, you know where to find us. The Pale Archive. We keep the files.